47 and the Earth in gate 22. We can see this here as we continue our walk around the wheel. We're moving counterclockwise, and we can see that the Sun in 47, this energy of realization. So you can see it down there in the Ajna center. And then the Earth in gate 22, it's a solar plexus gate, right? So it's going to link up with some emotionality. And this is about grace. And I love this. This is one of my favorite gates of just like, okay, how do we learn to like move forward with grace and humility?
Yeah, absolutely. The grace is a sensitivity to like listening to the other. And this is part of the cross of rulership. And I've loved, you know, rulership in a nine-centered way on this planet now is supposed to be riddled with both the 47's confusion process trying to get to the bottom of the what needs to be realized and the grace of the emotional center to wait and listen and do what the foundation of grace is. It's called second class ticket. It means it's the grace to sit back and let the other talk first, plenty easily, shall I say, so that the other can do what is most intimate to them. Speak, say their stuff, right? I mean, someone you don't know lets you start talking. That's a big deal.
It's a gift.
Yeah, it's a huge gift. It's one of
Yeah,
our
it's
bigger things.
yeah, it's fun also because Saturn has been in gate 22 for the past couple months as well. So I've really been enjoying that.
Yeah, it's made me emotional. I have a gate 12.
Oh, see, I have 12, but it's my Chiron. So it doesn't actually make me emotional, but I could feel just this sense of like grace, the sense of humility. So I feel like I get the benefit without the extra emotionality.
Chiron is interesting. At some point, we'll talk about that, but I would love to have a panel.
Oh,
Yep, because Ra could never be definitive about a couple of aspects of what Chiron was. It was beyond his ring past not, apparently.
we'll have to get into that in a
Yep.
future episode. So stay tuned.
Hmm.
All right. So the sun in gate 47, this is this gate of oppression, gate of realization. It's a restrictive and adverse state as a result of internal weakness or external strength or both. As we said, it's an ajna gate. It's part of the collective circuitry. So collective, think sharing. And it's part of the sensing or the abstract subcircuit. And it links up with gate 64, which is confusion. And then the 6447 is this channel of abstraction. This was really fun. This is fun to learn about. It says the 64 remembers disorganized collection of film clips that pass through its life. And then the 47 is the editor attempting to assemble them into a meaningful slice of human experience. Vacillating perceptions toward different interpretations, eventually experiencing aha moments. The
Yep.
secret is to avoid the pressure to act on every conclusion and then simply to enjoy the possibilities.
That's some really good advice, but
Ooh.
the aha is so true in the moment. Savor it. And if you find yourself where you can't help but to act on it, so be it. Because I mean, aha is a powerful place.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of powerful places, and I'd say that's one of them.
Oh yeah. Well, and especially it's like always go back to strategy and authority, you know?
Right.
And
Yeah.
then yeah, like enjoy the possibilities. And then when it's right, then yeah, act on it.
And
And see what happens.
this internal weakness, so a restrictive and adverse state, it is restrictive and adverse. It's called they called it oppression. We
Hmm.
read it to realization. Um,
Yeah.
Same process, but this internal, but an adverse state as a result of internal weakness or external strength. And I remember having to read this a bunch of times until I finally got it. You may know it's your internal weakness. Aha is not here yet. The external
Okay.
strength of the other to keep oppressing potentially because you still haven't come to aha yet. And so you don't
Um,
have the power because when the abstract process clicks into place, it then suddenly has a power that it didn't have before because aha, you know. Um,
interesting.
so yeah, it's about the external, or internal weaknesses and strengths that are either of the other or of the circumstance. So it is oppressive, essentially. And it says in rulership, as it relates to the first cross, it says in rulership, you must go through this adverse state. No free rides. No free rides. You're in a nine-centered being now. Gonna have to make a lot of aha decisions outside of violence and conquering. You know,
Mm-hmm,
um,
hmm.
y- you need aha to basically translate grace.
Hmm.
Grace is a long process. Aha comes at a moment after grace has given you what you needed to listen to. It is such a symmetry to be inside a rulership, because when you get to the other side of rulership, when you get into it, obviously that's the 40, the 45 and the 26. And those are, the boss, the authoritarian, potentially the ego gates, the hot ego gates that control in the past controlled with an iron fist. And that's not rulership these days. But 47 is this process. Um, so oppression is fun. That's I'm a salesman today, and I'm selling you that oppression is great. So don't you believe me? You want to buy, right?
Well, I mean, the nature of being human is to have things kind of pushing up against us and then
Absolutely.
making it through. Like when everything's comfortable, like you're bored out of your mind, it's just like, it's like having ice cream for breakfast. It's really fun that first time, but like after that, you get
Right.
really bored. So we need that something pushing on us. And then I love this idea, this like analogy as like the 64 is like these disparate film clips that are passing through of human experience, and 47 being the editor to assemble them, and then having that like open mindset, right? It's like how you're going to choose to view these experiences. And the more we can be on this open and grateful kind of mentality, right?
Hmm.
It's like life happens.
Hmm.
That's why we came to earth, is for stuff to kind of knock us around and for us to learn and grow and to be grateful for all those lessons and all the beauty and gifts that we do have. So having
And
that
the
like positive mindset and like how you're going to edit them clips.
And that film clip analogy also is great in another way, because if you're an editor and the thing you're being given that you have to put into something is a mishmash of different film clips over all of time, that's the frequency of the mind system over all
Mhm.
of time, all of memory. So back to when you were two, there's a clip from there as well. Fit it in, if you remember back then. And so it's oppressive. That's an oppressive job. So this editor in real life, out in the marketplace, quits over and over. If you think about it,
Yeah.
it's like, I've had enough. So it can feel like I've had enough,
Mm.
So don't quit. This thing is great. It's there to get this job done. And it's so rewarding on the other end.
So perfect that it like lines up with grace, which
And it
we'll learn
lines up.
about now.
Yes. Yep.
So the Earth in gate 22, it's a gate of grace and openness. It's a quality of behavior best suited to handling mundane and trivial situations. It's a solar plexus gate, part of the individual circuitry. So individual, think empowerment. And it's part of the knowing circuit, or sub-circuit, I suppose. And it links up with gate 12, which is standstill or caution. And then the 2212 make up the channel of openness. Gate 22 combines the potential for emotional openness through listening with a social grace and charm that is highly attractive to others when in the right mood. Recognizing and acting on correct timing is dependent on honoring your mood.
And this channel would be the unique, creative expression of the knowing individual circuit.
Mm,
Every circuitry uh, has its creative channel in it, and that would be the creative channel for this. 22, this handling mundane and trivial situations. It sounds boring, doesn't it? I mean,
it can, until you're like mundane and trivial situations are like the mass of what we engage with. That's like
well, that's what I was
95% of
gonna
our day.
say. Please dial up your entire life and recognize almost everything required the grace upon first meeting. This is a design of a social being, or not, obviously, and it's the design when the whole channel's there, and this openness is openness or not. And it's also a design to basically, as it listens to the other, the very first thing you ever hear is, "Hi, hey, my name's Dan. Hey, what do you do? How are you?" That's all mundane stuff.
Yeah.
That's why this is that. So
That's how
when
you
you
get
can
to the
say
good stuff.
mundane, yeah, or you can say, right, on your way to the good stuff, you can say it's best suited for the foundational amazing stuff. I
That's
mean,
real.
that's what this is. But it all starts with, "Hi, my name's Danny. What's your name?" Right?
Mhm.
Or
Yeah, I mean, those basic, and it's so necessary too in how we interact with one another and like connect, especially on an individual, right? It's not tribal. I feel like a tribal thing, it's like an easier way of like, cool, we're gonna connect because we're of a similar nature. But like individual, it's like, hey, I'm a weirdo, you're a weirdo.
you're a
Can we
weirdo,
like,
right?
can we meld
Yes.
our weirdo-iness?
Yeah, right. And we're talking. And so this is great. See, we're not weird anymore.
Hmm. Like,
Grace,
yeah, a lot of
social
people
openness.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of people knock small talk, and I used to be one of these people until like, oh, noticing it, just like, oh yeah, we need that grace and
Everything starts
openness.
there.
It starts there.
Right.
Without it, like you got nothing. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, just go into like quantum physics? Like, good
Well,
luck. I mean, cool if you can
r
find that, but
yeah,
it takes a few steps.
and take that concept of, the small talk, you gotta start somewhere. Take that concept over to our mating, you know what I mean?
Mm.
Imagine no small talk there, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
that's
What
really
we'd
fun.
be like,
Mm.
yeah, we'd be like caveman. What was that movie? And the caveman guy would go, "Ah," and then suddenly
Yeah,
they're making babies. Yeah, no, no, thank you. It's not gonna work.
yeah. The
And so
nuance, the grace.
right. So rulership requires the contemplation of the confusion that comes to the realization, tempered by the grace to listen to the other during this process to get the input that's needed. Every time you listen, it becomes a film clip put into the editor's hands, is the thing. And
Mm.
so that's rulership, putting it together that way. And then, of course, the ego, fiery ego, two ego gates are in rulership as a cross. But yep.
Fantastic. Yeah. Now we'll get to those crosses. So people born this week, these the Incarnation Crosses. First up, as Danny's been referencing, is the right angle cross of rulership. People bringing the past forward with grace who selectively borrow traditions or lessons learned from experience to claim their legitimate right to rule.
Mhm. I like it. People bringing the past forward. Isn't that what this whole realization thing does? That's what it does. It brings the past forward. um, cool.
Fantastic. Yeah. Then we'll move into the juxtaposition cross of oppression. People who use their understanding of the past to articulate or promote a new idea or concept or replace a present understanding.
Oh my God, that word understanding. So that's the circuitry on the other side. And let's face it, the logical circuitry isn't going to replace anything until acted upon by an outside force.
Mm.
These two things are part of the cross of consciousness. I mean, they abut it. They're on the other side of the cross of consciousness. At least the 47 is.
Hmm.
Yep. And to me, it's to promote this new idea. I love that, this oppression, juxtaposition of oppression, to try and get past, articulate, and then promote this thing that helps put something new into the understanding world. Because where's it going to come from except from our creative abstract process?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Sometimes it'll come from the observation of the logical process, but ultimately,
It's a new
and
experience. That's what the
yeah, and where better to come from in order to, basically replace a present understanding than from rulership. It's a great place to come from
Mhm, mhm.
to do that.
Perfect. So finally, then it'll be the left angle cross of informing people with social skills who use the past to inspire, to turn people's attention towards the plight of those who are oppressed. And this is informing as an art form.
Mm. And it is an art form. You
Mm,
gotta love this. Yep, I have a dear friend who is on the cross of informing with this 47 and their son 6'2", and that's what they do.
mhm.
Yep.
And like
So
looking out for the underdog, I noticed too. I have a friend who is like that.
yeah, yeah. So and let's see. So this is moving into gate 6, right? So it moves into from rulership
Yep.
through this informing through the thinking process into the forming, and then into gate 6. And gate 6 of conflict is becomes the cross of Eden.
Hmm.
Eden is
Hmm.
about sort of figuring it all out. So, okay, well, we're here now,
Oh
you
yeah, the
know.
Eden types are fantastic.
Yeah, and it's a good thing they were informed beforehand as the wheel moves, you know.
Oh, that's interesting. I love how you,
Yeah.
like, tie them together as I'm, like, starting to bridge these new understandings.
Yes, they all go together. It's so good. When you put the whole thing together, it's our genetic code
Mhm, mhm.
moving and our genetic code in motion. I have a theory that would take a little long to explain here, but it's we've been genetically created essentially over time in the mate in this
In the
basically this
program.
program in the
Oh, yeah.
program. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's too perfect, it's too divine, it's too beautiful.
Just like our genome.
Yeah, exactly. Alright, so final recap, September 9th through September 14th, the Sun in 47, this gate of realization, and the Earth in 22, which is grace. So this is always fun. We'll get into our I Ching hexagrams. So for gate 47, it's lake over water. You ready for the description?
Mhm.
All right, so 47. And so in the I Ching, gate 47 in this book is listed as confined. So it's kind of
Confined.
interesting, like, as a different thing than, like, oppressed, like, that could have, like, a whole different connotation, so I always like to see, like, okay, maybe there's a different angle. So
Mhm.
the image of this one states, "The lake water has all drained away into the stream below, where there might have been a sparkling center of vitality, communication, and exchange. There is no water left, no energy for communication. Even in such straits, a noble one is still active. The lake water drained downward and inward, merging with the stream in a single strong current. In the same way, a noble one lets her mandate, what she is called on to do, flow together with the aspiration of her own heart. The two strengthen one another and create an inner momentum that follows through to fulfillment."
So, the noble one perseveres, and what they're persevering through is oppression.
And that confinement.
Essentially, the confinement, being confined in this, so and I just put those 2 words as synonyms in this case,
Yeah.
so I say that fits.
It's very interesting too. I really love the movie analogy, like the clips that come through, and then the 47 is that editor and that nature of confining. Like you're cutting this clip, you're cutting this, you're understanding it. Okay, if I put it together this way, it has this meaning. But if you edit it a little different, it could have this meaning. So it's kind of interesting that nature of confining these different options, and there's a bit of
Mhm.
agency there too. Like you can like how are you editing these film clips together, right? You can edit it to view yourself as the biggest victim in the world, and like that's going to lead nowhere but a lot of misery and
Right.
bitterness. Or it can be like, cool, we're going to edit that as like hero's journey and triumphant resurrection. So
Absolutely.
I find that
No,
very interesting.
I totally get that. I think that makes sense. Actually, and when you put it into the whole channel, 47, 64, that
Yeah.
channel of abstraction, whereas its sister on one side, the channel of logic, is mental activity mixed with mental ease. That's sort of the frequency of that. This one is mental activity that never ceases.
Because the
It
clips
just
are
won't.
the
It
clips are
just,
coming.
yeah, the movie keeps playing unless you're asleep or whatever. Sometimes it doesn't play, but almost always the movie's
Yeah.
playing. I have this channel, it never really shuts off. So these guys are, you think too much people, but they don't think too much. They're thinking just right.
They just always have those clips coming in.
They can't stop coming in, yeah. So when you have the whole channel, that's the partner that, like, suddenly is dialing out while you're talking accidentally. The clips, it's a chemistry, it's not their fault.
This is great. I feel like I've had like such a growth in my understanding of this channel because I didn't have like a huge like understanding of it, and I feel a lot better with it. So thanks.
Well, if everything's abstract, and it
Yeah.
is our one of our jobs as nine-centered beings ultimately to get to understanding, it doesn't matter if you have channels in that circuitry, we're all moving towards better understanding,
Hmm.
and that job means you have to fish through all this stuff. It never Why would it stop? It's like, "Dude, I'm so busy. Oh, dude, I'm already behind 20 tons of stuff."
There's
So,
always new stuff coming in.
there's always new stuff coming in and or being churned over again, but that's healthy for that being.
Yeah.
For anyone with a channel of abstraction, pick something you want to learn and start learning it. I don't care how abstract it is. When your energy's not there for it, it's not right for you. And when it is, it's right for you. And just learn the crap out of stuff because this process will keep going on. And it's part of rulership.
Mm,
Ultimately, rulership is supposed to lead towards informing. In the
mhm,
old way, rulership was supposed to lead towards conquering and ownership.
mhm,
Big
mhm.
difference in our
And
2 ways.
and also the nature of like a good ruler, right? A good leader, right? Is one that's gonna create a story and like edit those images in a positive way that's gonna bring people together around that common cause, around the common good, around that absolute truth of goodness, beauty,
Absolutely.
justice. So that's
Mhm.
very interesting too, how the nature of the rulership and creating a story that like unifies us.
Absolutely, yeah, of course, and they would need to be tempered by these things, and these things would need the fire of the manipulation of memory in gate 26 and the absolute authority of 45 to basically teach and give
Mhm,
and educate in a way and sorta homogenize a little bit. A little bit of
mhm.
homogenization is not a bad thing.
It's
Y
part of being human.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Fantastic.
So,
All right, ready for gate 22?
ma'am, yes, ma'am.
All right. So for gate 22, which is grace, and then in our I Ching book, it reads as beauty, which I think is lovely. It reads, perhaps the firelight is flickering over the rock face, creating shifting patterns of light and dark. Or perhaps this is the volcanic fire inside a mountain, still dynamically shaping what appears so solid and established from the outside. The inner light of awareness shines through the outer form. So a noble one sees all the standards, all the way the world is governed and ordered from the inside. He understands how things are defined and how standards arise, and how many forms of the inner essence can take. So where could he possibly stand to pass judgment?
Not only nowhere, but it sounds like the nobleman had a foundation of dealing with lots of mundane, what appear to be trivialities on his way to that description you just mentioned, read off.
Mhm. That's the
Yep.
nature of grace. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, and I'm looking at these things, mountain and fire. So I can't wait to s how do these things go together?
Yeah, it's
Because
interesting.
this the mountain and the fire part is part of the old Chinese wisdom about the hexagram, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Sense
that's the Chinese stuff. Well, on this one, it's saying the firelight that's flickering over the rock face, creating shifting patterns of light and dark. Or perhaps the volcanic fire inside a mountain that's still dynamically shaping what appears so solid and established from the outside. So I think it's talking about that fire, that movability, right? Whether it's images of light on the rock face, or the volcanic that like seems solid, but it's still all molten and ooey gooey, and that inner
Yeah,
light of awareness shining through from the outer form.
I'm gonna have to contemplate that. I can think of that a bunch of different ways as it relates to the grace inside of this cross on its way to Eden, going through and forming part of a nine-centered experience. I'm gonna ponder that.
Hmm.
'Cause that's not as easy to what you just read, it was not as easy for me to just, translate for some
Hmm.
reason.
Yeah,
I
I
must
feel like,
I must be confused and oppressed for a moment.
oh my goodness, perhaps. Well, I like how it says the inner light of awareness shines through the outer form. And then the noble one sees all the standards, that's going to see all the ways that this fire is going to be shaping from within the mountain, or the lights that are moving all around, and having that broad perspective, right?
Mm,
All the ways the world is governed and ordered from the inside. He understands how things are defined, how standards arise, and how many forms the inner essence can take. So where can he stand? So he can see such a variety. So who is he to judge? And having that grace of the varieties of
yeah,
expressions of the, especially the shape that's still forming, right? The fire, it's that volcanic, it's not hard yet. It's still in that shape of forming, and allowing that grace of like, okay, what are you going to become?
so the grace is malleable, which of course it is, adaptable, and also it says that part of rulership and part of this grace then is like a furnace waiting to have an emotional awareness about something that is much deeper than where it started. It says the second class ticket of the foundational line, willing to just sit and listen, is really just a temporary state, on its way to something very manifestory because this is part of one of three
Yeah,
manifesting channels. So coolio.
I
I
love
feel
it.
pretty good. So what do we do? Let's put into some words what this means for the next few days while this energy is in the sky. So this energy is transiting through the sun and our earth. So this is powerful stuff. Every child born during this time is one of these three crosses that we just read off a slide a couple slides ago. And so this will be programming and conditioning the planet and the people in it to what?
Yeah, I would say I start on the earth side, because I find it's like the earth is what's receiving the sun. So like how
Mhm.
we can ground ourselves. And so grounding ourselves in that grace, in that humility and understanding, right? Of like that light is going to show all sorts of different pictures of that volcanic fire inside the mountain, right? It's still, the lava is still moving around. It's still being shaped and formed, and allowing ourselves and others, especially that grace of becoming, right? They're still in that process of becoming, and allowing that through that, and then you can bring in the sun with that confinement or the oppression, or okay, trying to make sense of okay, these different memories or images that are coming through in our lives, and having that grace as that editor of how we're going to edit them. What mindset are we going to choose to place upon these experiences and these images, right? We can move forward with grace, with humility, with courage and bravery.
Yeah, and what you said, amongst the first couple of things you just said and all of that was the listening part. And it just seems to say to me that this week, notice that you've already been listening to stuff. So if you find yourself getting annoyed, why don't you lean in? Why don't you do a whole ton of listening this week, even if you also have a hard time with something,
Well,
go do
especially if you
that.
have a hard time with it.
Especially if you have a hard time with something. Right, right, right. Thank you, Mona. Yeah. And it just says that this is a week that with all kinds of listening, there'll be all kinds of abstract stuff to give us all kinds of aha.
Mhm,
And the more we embrace that process, the more ultimate clarity we'll have. Because ultimately the 6447 channel, when that's there, that's a design of mental activity mixed with clarity, just like the
mm,
emotional process. Because the aha becomes clear. It doesn't stay there because the new aha is on its way, but that's what it's saying. It's saying this is a week and this is a time, the next few days, 4 or 5 days, however long, to literally do plenty of listening such that you can then talk and find out what stuff you abstractly are dealing with. This is going to be important to
mhm,
you and to us and to everyone else. So, with grace in the sky and listening in this mental process, two awareness centers lit up by this process, um, don't shy away from hard subjects. Start listening.
mm,
Everything where there's a conflict in your family, some kind of a division, anything like this that might have been difficult, um, listen and find out what does come across, but not right now because it's part of an emotional process essentially.
give it time.
So wait till it's over. And then next week, see what came of all of this. So
Mhm.
do some listening.
Mhm. And how
Yep.
important it is to listen, right? Like, it's so easy to be, like, waiting for your turn to speak, or
Blah,
you're
blah,
gonna, like,
blah.
have the
Right.
argument, and the person's gonna agree with you, and you're gonna win, right? Like, that's how so
Right.
often we move through it. So but so
Right.
often
Right.
if we allow that other to speak, like, what are they trying to really tell us? You know, like,
Hmm.
sometimes there's something really important there for them to express or for us to learn, and maybe even if, like, 90% of it is, like, whatever, it doesn't matter, maybe there's, like, 10% or, like, one really good nugget that
Right.
if we can be in grace, if we can ground ourselves in that like humility and grace to just listen and receive, and an open mindset of how we're going to perceive these experiences, then that clarity and that aha will eventually come, and we'll be in a better place for it.
Yep. Yep. I'm down with all of that. This is pretty good. Pay attention to all of what we were just saying about these next few days. And I certainly hope, I just want it all to wash across the world and everyone to wake up and be good again.
We're getting there, baby steps with grace
Yeah.
and humility and an open mind.